Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit China for informal talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping from Friday to Saturday. The visit comes against the backdrop of a series of high-level interactions between the two countries, starting from China's top diplomat Wang Yi's visit to India last December, the first high-level exchange after the Donglang border friction last summer. Military personnel from both countries faced off for 73 days in the Himalayan region before tensions eased ahead of the BRICS summit in Xiamen, China. Since then, a lot of water has flown under the bridge. What can we expect from the Xi-Modi summit this week, and what will it mean for Sino-Indian relations? I'm pleased to be joined in New Delhi by Professor Shrikant Kondapalli from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and in Beijing by Professor Zhang Junshe, Vice President of the Naval Research Institute of China. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Professor Kondapalli, explain to us how is this upcoming meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi viewed in India by the press and by the academics?
Well, there is a lot of euphoria in India about the upcoming meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. Partly because we have reached a level of nadir in the bilateral relations, as you mentioned, in the Tunglang Doklam area last year. Although trade has increased marginally, while we have not kept the $100 billion target, yet there has been some momentum forward. Yet I think the last year's events have had a huge impact on the bilateral relations. So to that extent, there is a lot of euphoria in India about the Prime Minister's visit to Wuhan to meet with President Xi Jinping. The expectations obviously are in terms of border stability. As you know, that the territorial dispute has not been resolved between the two countries. And last year, the number of border transgressions have increased to about 426 odd, as compared to nearly 200 the previous year. So this has resulted in some kind of instability on the territorial aspects. Secondly, there is also the issue of globalization. Both sides have had common position on globalization in terms of the countering trade protectionism.
Right.
If you compare President Xi Jinping's speech in Davos and Prime Minister Modi's speech in Davos, the common perspective on globalization and against trade protectionism is visible.
Right.
Thirdly,
Professor
in terms of
Kondapalli.
multipolarity.
Yeah. Right. Professor
SCO
Kondapalli, hold it there, please. Let's go through some of the points that you mentioned just now, which I think it's very important. I hope we'll have the time to address the border issue, the globalization, and the multipolar world. Let's see how much time we have. But Professor Zhang Junshe, against what backdrop is China and India continue to warm up their relationship with this informal summit?
Well, just as you said, my counterpart in India said that ever since the Donglang military standoff last year, I think the bilateral relationship between the two countries have been improving, both economically and militarily. And also, I think it is reported that Mr. Modi's government now is facing some issues, both internally and internationally. Internally, maybe there are some critics in India say that his demonetization issue maybe is affecting the economy. And also, many people now in India think that the improvement of the bilateral relationship is in the fundamental interest of India as well as China. So most of the people in India now support the improvement of the bilateral relations. Internationally, just as you said that now both China and India support the multilateral trade system and oppose to unilateral and trade protectionism. And we know that also India is concerned about its trade of services, especially to the United States. So I think these two countries, China and India, share the common views on the free trade system. So we can find some areas and ways to strengthen the cooperation between our two countries, not only in politics, but also economy, trade, and military field.
Right. What kind of profound changes, in the words of China's top diplomat Wang Yi, that we are looking at for both countries in today's world, Professor Kondapalli, and how has these changes brought India and China together? Closer, let's say.
I think the speech by Foreign Minister Wang Yi should be seen in the context of recent developments. For example, the Trans-Pacific Partnership revocation. Secondly, the Brexit by United Kingdom. The third event is in terms of climate change proposals not being implemented by several states. And the trade that has relatively less growth rates last year. This has resulted in a lot of trouble for the export-oriented economies, and the overall security situation after the missile strikes on Syria. These have impacted globally the situation, and so as large countries, India and China, looking for ways and means to stabilize the situation, at least in the Asian region. So this meeting contributes possibly for such kind of alternative perspectives.
Well, China and India together, our population make up almost 1/3 of humanity, right? So we do have a lot of weight. However, economically, we are both developing countries. Professor Zhang, what kind of common interests do China and India see in terms of, in the surrounding of these profound changes that we're talking about?
Well, I think development and security are the main focus, not only faced by China and India, also by the Shanghai Cooperation Organization members. So both countries, India and China, regard the development as the top priority for both countries. So I think these two countries should find some ways to strengthen our cooperation in all areas, including politics, economy, security, people-to-people exchanges, external exchanges, and also some mechanism building. So this is the first. On the security front, of course, there are some border disputes between the two countries, but both countries have decided not to let the border issue to overshadow the cooperation between our two countries. I think this is a good sign. And actually, China has already put forward the proposal to other countries where we have disputes with other countries to set aside disputes and seek joint development, seek cooperation. Actually, China has resolved the land border issues with 12 neighbors out of its 14 neighbors. So I'm sure China and India will find some ways to overcome their obstacles that in front of them.
Professor Kondapalli, earlier you mentioned the perceived Chinese activities into Russian territory, if I understand you correctly. How much confidence is there among Indian observers that the border issue will be kept under control, at least not to disrupt the warming political and economic relations between these two countries?
Well, on the borders, we have 6 arrangements on confidence-building measures, starting with the 1970s and then Peace and Tranquility Agreement. When President Jiang Zemin visited India, we had CBMs in the military field, in the conventional field. Then later on, we added the Border Defense Cooperation Agreement and a host of other, tactical level confidence-building measures. So I think overall there is peace and tranquility on the border. Of course, the Xiamen meeting, both the leaders suggested that there will be additional CBMs in the future. So this meeting in Wuhan possibly would result in much more arrangements in terms of qualitatively enhancing the CBMs. between the two, and possibly more stability on the border areas. But I would like to come back again to one of the recent developments, that is the missile strikes on Syria. I think the last 4 or 5 years, the energy prices are relatively low, at about $52 per barrel. Now it has increased to roughly about $72 per barrel, and in this year we are expecting the energy prices to spike around $80 per barrel. As the largest consumers of energy resources, China is the second largest importer of energy. India is the third largest importer of energy. So as largest consumers of energy, the Syrian developments would have a huge impact in terms of energy consumption, energy imports. So the meeting in Wuhan would also possibly address this issue of what to do with energy prices increase, because this is going to pinch the GDP figures of China and India if they do not take measures in this regard.
Yeah, Professor Zhang, what is the Chinese understanding of what will be talked about, and what possible outcome can we expect from the Xi-Modi meeting in Wuhan?
Well, I think, just as I say, maybe development and security are the focus of maybe the topics discussed between the leaders of the two countries. And China, maybe India maybe is looking forward for more investment from China, and also China wants to cooperate with India in many fields, economy, trade, and also the people-to-people exchanges. And also we can see that on the military front that the relations are also improving. So maybe we can discuss the possibility of the resumption of the annual joint military exercise and other confidence-building measures. Both the measures will cover economy, trade, and military.
Yeah. Finally, about 30 seconds left. Professor Kondapolli, actually Prime Minister Modi will visit China in June as well to attend the upcoming summit, 18th summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as a new member which joined last year. So how special is this for Prime Minister Modi to visit China in such a short span of time twice?
I think this is signaling to China that India values its relations with China, and the spirit of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is number one, territorial dispute resolution or territorial stability, number one, energy security, number three, counter-terrorism peace mission exercises, number four, multipolar world. I think these are valuable to India as well, and we can make possibly some trust with each other on these four main issues.
Okay.
During this meeting,
we have to
and
leave it
also
there.
in Qingdao.
Yeah, we have to leave it there. Sorry to interrupt you, Professor Kondapolli, joining us from India. He is professor from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and many thanks to Professor Zhang Jingshi, Vice President of China's Naval Research Institute here in Beijing.